The T-Rex Torch Series grill insert with chrome studs and LED lights is for anyone with a 3.6 liter 2018 and up JL that are looking for a grill insert that's not only going to change up the look of your Jeep, but also add all of these auxiliary lights, which can be quite functional. This is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrench installation, not because it's all that difficult, but because there's just a little bit of wiring to do, really just a connection at the battery because of the wiring harness that comes with the kit, but we'll show you exactly how to get that done in just a second. So a grill insert overall is going to be one of those more aesthetic modifications. Generally, they're not adding a lot of functionality to your Jeep, but this one, having all of these lights built right into it, is going to add that extra bit of function. So for the grill insert part, you're essentially just trading the plastic mesh that's behind your factory grill for a billet mesh here, which it means it's going to be a little bit stronger. It's going to have a little bit of a different look, but overall, this is more or less going to be a factory style. What does change is that you end up with these rivets here, and on this particular version, these are a chrome color, but you can also get them in black if you're looking for something a little bit more subdued. Then of course, the main feature of this grill insert is the lights across the top. It has one for each of the 7 slots in your grill, and these are going to be pretty bright little LED lights. They're not any particular beam pattern, they're more of a spread pattern. You can individually aim these up, down, and left and right to give you the pattern that you're looking for, but being that they are more of a spread pattern, they're not something you're going to be using on the road while driving with oncoming traffic. They're going to be more of a dark back road or wheeling after the sun goes down type of light. As I mentioned before, these do come with a wiring harness, which is a very nice feature, but even with the wiring harness and even with the high quality construction, this is still going to be a pretty expensive piece, coming in at right around that $700 mark. If you're looking for something that's going to both change up the look and add the function, you really like this style because you can't find this from a lot of other manufacturers. The price tag is the price tag, you might just have to pay it. However, if you're just looking to add some lights and do a grill insert, you could probably do these two pieces separately and save yourself a couple of dollars, but it is completely up to you what look and what function you want on the front of your Jeep. So like we said before, 2 out of 3 wrenches for this installation. Let's show you how to do it. For this install, you will need an 8mm and 10mm socket along with an 8mm and 10mm wrench. We also used a T20 and T27 Torx socket, a 3/8 extension, all driven by our 3/8 electric impact. Finally, we used a small straight bladed screwdriver and our trim removal tool. So this is going to be a pretty easy 2 out of 3 wrenches, only because of the wiring that's involved, but we'll get to that in just a second. The first step in the install is going to be getting the hood popped and getting the factory grill removed from the Jeep so we can start working on it. To remove the factory grill from the Jeep, there are some plastic clips across the top that we'll remove with our trim removal tool. With the clips across the top removed, there are just a couple of plastic tension clips on the bottom that hold this into place, so giving it a pull will release it from the Jeep. Now we're going to remove a couple more things from the front of the Jeep. We're going to unbolt and unplug the horns. They're going to get bolted to our new grille. We're also going to unbolt these support bars here and add some new ones that come in the kit that have a little bit of a different shape. And finally, we will remove a couple of plastic pieces here and here because they're going to be in our way. And because of the air inlet here, there's an additional bracket that we're going to bolt up right here. So we'll start with the horns, first unplugging them and then unbolting them. Now that we have the grill off the Jeep and over here on the table, we're going to do our disassembly. So the JLs do come with a little bit of a factory grill insert that we have to remove first. So we have our trim removal tool, and we're going to start by removing these white clips across the center. Once those are removed, we can remove the small Torx bolts that are holding the grill insert in place, and finally pry up the rest of the plastic clips, and this insert will come out in 3 pieces. Now we'll use our trim removal tool to pry up on these plastic clips. And there's 1/3 of our factory grill insert that we can set aside. Now it's time to get our new grill insert installed in our grill. You can pretty much just lay it face down in here and it centers itself in place. Then we'll grab the brackets that are included in the kit to attach it to the grill. These rectangular brackets slide right over top of these plastic tabs, and we can reuse the factory plastic clips to hold everything down. The next brackets we're going to install are these larger ones that go below the headlights, and we're going to use some factory hardware to hold them in place. There's one on either side. Next we have these 2 smaller brackets, and they're going to go just above the large ones we just installed, again using factory hardware to secure them down. You might have noticed when we brought our T-Rex grill insert up to the grill that it didn't have the 2 outer lights installed in it, and that's because T-Rex gives those to you separately, and these lights are a little bit different from the rest. These are milled down on the end to get rid of some of the heat sink fins on the back to create enough clearance for you to get this thing installed on the Jeep. Now, these are not actually going to get installed in the outermost slots. They need to come in 1 slot. So what we need to do is just a little bit of switching around. We'll take some existing lights out, move those to the outer slots, and install the milled ones 1 slot in from either side. Move this light to this outer hole here. And as you can see, this light has the fins milled off the back, unlike the other ones, and this is going to go in this spot right here. And we'll do the same thing on the other side of the grill. Now we can bolt our horns into their new location on the inside of the grill, and in order to do that, we have two relocation brackets. So there are a couple of studs on the back of the grill insert. The bracket's going to slide over top of that and get bolted down, and the horn will get bolted onto the bracket. Now we're going to attach the wiring harness to the lights that daisy chains them all together. And we're going to tuck this harness underneath the horns. That way it's not going to be as much in our way when we go to put the whole grill on the Jeep. So these two connectors at the end here are going to go underneath the horn this way, these two the other way, and then we'll screw the harness to the back of the lights. This is the end of the harness that's going to get plugged into the rest of the wiring harness that we'll install in the Jeep in just a second. So we want to make sure that this remains free and clear of any tangles so that we can pass it through the grill and get it into the engine bay once we get the grill over to the Jeep. And there we have the two connectors for the outermost lights. Get those plugged in and screwed down. And then we'll just work our way across to the other side here. On this side, we're going to do the same thing and pass these two connectors underneath our horn brackets before we connect them. Now we will tidy up our wiring harness a little bit, make a couple of folds, tuck it under those horn brackets a little bit further. You can go even a step beyond that and use some wire ties if you choose to. Again, we're just tidying things up so they're not going to be in the way when we go to snap our grill back onto the Jeep. And that's the last step we need to take over here on the table. Now it's time to get the grill over to the Jeep, get it all plugged in and snapped into place. With the Grille installed on the Jeep, all that's left to do is to route and install our wiring harness. And there are going to be 3 different ends of the harness that we need to worry about. This end here, which is the weatherproof connector that we need to get up to that connector on the Grille. These 2 terminals here, which are going to go to our battery, and finally the switch. We're going to be passing the switch through the hole in the firewall here, depending on your trim level, your transmission, a couple of different factors. You may or may not have a hole with a grommet here that you can pass your wiring through. You may have to look elsewhere, you may have to drill a hole, but again, on our Jeep we have a nice wide opening that we're going to pass our switch through. So we'll get our wiring harness spread out across the engine bay with all of the connectors where they need to end up, pushing the switch through the firewall. Then we'll go back, connect everything, and clean up our wiring. At this point, we're going to do a little bit of tucking of our wiring now. We're just doing this install for demonstration purposes. We're going to be removing everything. If you're installing this permanently on your Jeep, you're going to want to dress things up, make it look nice. You're also going to want to make sure that everything is staying away from anything that moves or anything that gets hot. Now, we do have a relay here in the center of our wiring harness. This isn't something that you should have to access on any sort of regular basis, but you do want to make sure that you know where this is if something were to go wrong with it. You also don't necessarily want this just flapping around behind the engine, so this would be another great spot for a zip tie. Again, we're just going to tuck ours for now. We'll work our wiring around the back side of our fuse panel here. We have these 2 leads that are going to end up at the battery, so we'll leave those exactly where they are. And then we have the other end here that's going to get plugged into the wiring harness that's on the back of our lights. Now, as you can see, we have a little bit of additional length here. You can do a number of things: tape it, zip tie it up out of the way, cut and solder to shorten your harness, whatever you decide to do. Again, we're just sort of going to bundle this down in front of the battery and bring our lead over and get it plugged into our Grille. Now we'll jump back over and make the connections on our battery before we go inside and show you where that switch ended up. So we're going to remove a couple of 10mm nuts on top of our battery connectors here. Of course, black to black, red to red for this connection. Just slide our rigging terminal underneath there. Get our nut tightened back down again. And over here on the positive, same thing. If you route your wiring how we did, your switch is going to end up here in the driver footwell. As you can see, with it connected up to the battery, our indicator light comes on when the lights are on and off when the lights are off. This switch is designed to be mounted in a hole anywhere you decide to drill it, so pop a hole in your dashboard and you can install your switch. So if you're looking for a Grille insert that's not only going to change up the look of your Jeep, but also add some functionality, I would recommend taking a look at this option from T-Rex, and you can find it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.